Was nice to run into the Great Oak yesterday up at the Raptors Academy camp at Humber, and, as usual, he was forthright in his assessment of all things Raptor. It'll be fun to see him stalking the sidelines as a coach during this Big Three thing at the Air Canada Centre, Scotiabank Arena, on Friday night. Kawhi Leonard is still something of a divisive figure for fans of the Toronto Raptors, who aren't completely convinced about the wisdom of the trade which sent DeMar DeRozan to the Spurs in exchange for Leonard. Christian Peterson, Getty Images. Oak doesn't play, although he does look like he could routinely drop 15 and 10 in an NBA game even at 54 years old. As I mentioned to him when we were chatting, 15, he chuckled. They let big men shoot, now I could get 20, probably could. Article continued below. Anyway, I'm taking the easy way out this morning because this easing back into things isn't going quite as easily as I want. We'll be back with some stuff tomorrow. This is the continued clean out of last week's mail that I just didn't get up because of the craziness of the week, and I'm moving along on the fresh stuff now. If I can get a quiet afternoon, perchance whilst visiting my stool, I'll get it done by the week. Anyway, if you want to play along for this Saturday or Sunday, just click on ask.thestar.ca and let me know what's on your mind. It's fun to play along. Q. Good afternoon, Doug. It appears that the health issues are settling down for you and you are back to some semblance of normal. Reading your comments about the Raptors making a play for Leonard, I would agree with you if one condition was met. He signed a long-term contract first, if acquired. I simply cannot see any sense in trading 3 or 4 solid players, a few who have the world ahead of them, for a year. Yes, he is good, but the last year has shown him to be selfish and egotistical. I cannot recall ever hearing of any player for the Spurs not being treated well. That is simply not pops. Article continued below. Boba, he can't sign any extension because of salary cap rules, and that's a big sticking point in this whole process. I'm not sure where the full scope of blame lies in this episode. I would presume there is shared responsibility for things going so far off the rails. I will point out that many reporters and commentators far closer to the situation than I am are suggesting that perhaps Leonard's advisors are not acting with his entire best interests at heart. Q. Hi Dougie, I'm very pleased to see that you have returned. I hope your work rate is just enough to keep you engaged but not enough to stress you, and that the upshot is that you are enjoying it. With respect to the phase-in of the TV money, do you know the details of what was proposed? If it was a simple phase-in, that would mean that the owners would keep money that otherwise would be paid to players. I don't think that flies. Even if phase-in that was net zero on aggregate has problems. Something like 60 players leave the league every year, fixed rosters, 30 guaranteed first-round picks, about 30 second-round and free agent signings, so 60 in requires 60 out. It might be 45 players, which is still 10% of the league. Some of the leaving players will be due to injury. It is a non-trivial task to design a phase-in that does not stiff those players. Given these issues, I don't think it is appropriate to dump all the responsibility for the lack of phase-in on the players. Also, working this out requires a lot of numbers, and we know you and math. Smiley face. Thanks for all the good work, and I hope to be reading you for a long time to come. Jim Ruthama, I don't think I've seen a series of legitimate proposals that would have been made to smooth the infusion of new money in 2016. But I do know for a fact the union dismissed the proposal, and since they've never made public a counter-proposal and we've seen the continued eroding of the union middle class, I think they need to carry the burden of blame. But we'll never know for sure. Q. Hi Doug. Great to see you working. While I agree with you that a 1-16 seeding has major issues to overcome before it could happen, I can't agree with jetting behind a reseeding of the Final Four. I believe that if an 8th seed can knock off a 1 seed, for example, then they have earned the right to have the 1 seed's route to the final. Does it mean that the final, should they get there, would be less compelling? Possibly, but aren't Cinderella teams always compelling, generating excitement? I just don't see telling a Cinderella team that has played its ass off to get this far, nice but too bad. You have to do it again to get to the finals. Also, if you aren't seeding 1 to 16, the reseeding of the Final Four takes the conference championship off the table. If they are still seeded 1 to 8, the conference championship is something they are still playing for. Take care. Lisa, I see your point and it's valid. There's also no question that East and West champions disappear regardless if you seed 1 to 16 or reseed a Final Four. Guess that would be the cost of change. Q. Hello Doug. Hopefully the new routine is working well for you. France 3, Croatia 1. What do you think? I don't ever recall any real controversy during Pop's reign in San Antonio. I thought the process was infallible and it certainly looked like the players bought into it. I also thought that Leonard was just a quiet assassin on the court, but ultimately a company man. Should we be reading anything into this? Is it time for a reboot in San Antonio or is this just an outlier? What is your take on the situation? Santino, I don't think we should read too much into it, no. And, yes, the Spurs' reputation is tremendous and rightfully so, but it's since come to light that a year ago now, LaMarcus Aldridge wanted out and they somehow smoothed those feathers, so they do have a history of avoiding contentious departures. Q. I agree with your comments about Leonard. The Raptors aren't good enough to beat Boston with their current roster. Even if they could not retain him the way the Thunder retained George, in a few years Masai can use his African connections to go after Antetokounmpo. Meanwhile, best wishes for a full recovery and a very healthy 2018-19 season. Stephen Auerbach, B.A., LL.B., A. Why not live the dream and try for both? Go big or go home. Doug Smith is a sports reporter based in Toronto. Follow him on Twitter, @SmithReps.